All right, friends, we are live on the Angular channel. It is your hosts, Mark and Jeremy, here for March. Jeremy, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm ready for the weekend. We had a big conference for web developers at Google this week, and that was a lot of work. So ready to take a break after that.
I hear that. Hold on one second. I have our stream open someplace on my computer, and I can hear myself talking, and it's freaking me out. Okay, now we're fine. Sorry. So it's like everything you said, it started happening like with the delay, and I could hear it, and I was like, "What's going on?" So much stuff. Oh, let's see who's in the streets, Jeremy. We got Patrick in the streets. Look, that developer conference. Can I just tell you that it went super well. I thought the team did a great job. We all had a good time. Whew, it's tiring though. Tiring. Right after that, I actually went to my alma mater college to give a tech talk the next day. So I didn't get a chance to take any time off and just like recoup like I wanted to. But this weekend I will be getting some rest. I'll be getting some rest for sure. Let's see. We got GDG combo. Oh, okay, let's go. Hello. Mohit, what's going on? Nuno, what up? What? Dimitri, let's go on. What's up? Carlos, Gabriel de los Rios, what up? Hans, good to see you. David, good to see you. Benjamin, let's see. What are we coding today? You know what's going to happen? Cool stuff. All right, we're going to show you some stuff. Taid said, hire me. We do not have the power to hire you. Omar, what's going on? Arteman, what's up? Jan Nicholas in the building. What's up? How's it going? Oh, look at Doug in the building. What's up, Doug? Chinmay, what up? How are you doing? Greetings from Germany. What up, Dev Dog? Let's go. Santiago, hello. What's up? Madi, what do we have for us? Well, actually, let's talk about that. Jeremy, what is on the agenda for the day?
All right, you got my screen share on the stream.
I do.
All right, so I figure we take a look at the new model input API that is recently usable in Angular.
Woo! Can't wait to show it.
What I wanted to do was play the game Balatro, which is my new gaming obsession. Even though I picked up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, what I really want to do is just sit and keep playing Balatro.
Okay, so here's what we can do as a compromise. We'll show you folks for maybe the first half of the stream. We'll answer questions the entire time, but we'll do a little bit of just demoing this new model, like model inputs. We'll start doing that, and then we'll do some Balatro because I want to see how to play it. Okay, we got Azrak. What's going on? I think I said hi to Arden already. Salus says your tutorials made me learn Angular in one day and start building real-world applications. Thank you for saying that. I'm so glad you liked it. And guess what? We got more tutorials on the way, and we got a revamp of that tutorial on the way. Okay. Let's see. Yugo Cheku, what's going on? Hello. Love from India. What's back? Much love to India, too. Back at you. Sina, what up? Ephraim, what's going on? Let's see. I would like to use Event Emitter for a file upload, but I would receive the data. What the file? Okay, we'll come back to your question. I'm going to star it. We'll come back to it. Just greeting people. Philip, what's going on? Thanks for the tweet. I almost missed it. Justin, you know what? Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Thanks for coming through. Okay, I think that's Guilherme.
How's my screen size?
I can't tell you yet. I'm going to add you in a second. Let's see. We'll get you there. Hello, people with great Angular. Okay, let's see. Oh, there you go. To see output. I see that output came out in the RC. Would also like to demo that. Jeremy, do you want to show the RC of output as well?
If we have time. If we have time.
All right.
There's not a lot to show.
Well, I think people just want to see it. All right. There's so many people. So many people. If I did say hi to you, just know that I am still thinking about you and I care about you. Don't worry. Hafiz, hi from Malaysia. Let's answer the first question as we get Jeremy's screen on stage. You ready for that? Okay, your screen looks visible to me. It looks legible, but I am, of course, looking at it through our. I wonder if I can resize. Let me see how that looks. Oh, that looks great, actually. Did you put it in Zen mode or something?
This is in WebStorm's presentation mode.
Perfect. So clean.
The only downside is that you can't be. It's necessarily full screen. So wait, I can't say exit full screen mode. Oh, okay.
Pretty close.
Perfect. As soon as it occurred to me to say the word full screen, I'm like, well, what if I just type in my action palette full screen?
Yeah.
WebStorm, as usual, has exactly what I needed.
Okay, so wait, they said increase the font size, please. I think you did. Patrick, how's that font size? That's pretty large, but let us know if you need more. Okay, here's first question. Guys, I have a question. The signals are currently still attached to Zone.js, right? Right now, it won't make any difference to use them. So I guess David wants to know, like, should I be using signals even though we're still using them in zone-based components?
Yes, you should start using signals for new stuff if you're okay with the developer preview. I think we talked about this. I think you sent me like a YouTube short even, Mark, of talking about the difference kind of between developer preview and experimental. Am I remembering correct?
Oh, that wasn't me. That was somebody else.
No? Okay. But yeah, so developer preview means like we're pretty confident in the stability of it, right? But we just want to reserve some time to get feedback and maybe make small API changes before it becomes stable. So if you're comfortable with that developer preview, then there's definitely benefits in using signals. One is that it makes your application ready to take advantage of future optimizations that are based on signals coming down the line. In particular, like the signal-based components. It lets you use computeds, which are really great. Just kind of a more efficient way of having computed and expressions. So you don't have to like imperatively update things in ng on init. You have the ability to, write effects for doing things when only certain expression changes. And it just integrates with other signal-based stuff really well. So yeah, definitely like using signals is the way to go.
And signals, so writable signal stable and computed are stable.
Yeah, so the API, just for conversation's sake, right? If I have some, let's just say is admin equals signal of false, right? And we're going to go ahead and import that, right? This signal API, this is stable. And then if I say, let's say show admin panel, I don't know. I'm trying to like come up with some
for computed,
some computed thing.
Yeah, just do a message that is admin show, like a string or something, right? Like admin message, yeah.
Right. And we can be like this dot is admin, right? Admin regular.
Right.
There you are. And always remember you invoke to read here. I'll just wrap that like that. And so yeah, signal and computed, those are stable and reliable. So what are we doing today? We're going to look at model inputs on a component. So let's go ahead and just create one. So I made us a custom checkbox here. I use the prefix.
Wait, slow down. What is a model input? Why will we use it?
I'm going to explain it as I write it.
As you write it. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going to give you benefit of the doubt.
So I guess let's start off by actually just like putting a checkbox in here. Input type checkbox. And we're going to put a label around that so it's, accessible, easy to click. This is, label here, which we're going to introduce in a second. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a regular input first for that label. And that is just an input, and it's going to start off as the empty string, and we're going to import that. And if we were to add to our imports here, I used MGS as the prefix here for Mark and Jeremy's stream. Put that checkbox up top. It has to be up top. And so I'm also just going to add a little like style here. So
Jeremy, I'm holding back my troll behavior.
Your what behavior?
My trolling behavior, because I really was about to comment on your component names, but I don't want to derail you.
I don't even know what you're referring to.
Well, because you don't put on line 17, shouldn't that be MJS checkbox component?
No.
I know. Oh, I know. So friends at home, Jeremy has some really interesting ideas about naming that we've covered in previous streams. So
right.
You know, so I like to tease a little bit.
I just put a little style on there, so you'll be able to make out this component. And so let's go ahead and just drop that custom checkbox here. Boop. There it is. And the label is empty right now because I didn't pass one in. So let's just say label here equals admin.
Could you zoom your web browser window a little bit? Yeah, perfect.
Cool. So that label's coming in, and we got a normal input here, right? Like we're getting this and we're reading it here, no problem. So now we're gonna say checked is a model, and it's gonna start off false. Now, this works very similar to an input, right? So this is another special type of input. So I'll just even leave a comment as I go. Special type of input. It's model. So model, say, special type.
Oh, with the markdown backticks. I like that.
Yeah. And so, well, what happens if we bind to it, right? What happens if we say checked equals true? Oh, I wonder if WebStorm doesn't have support for model yet.
Oh, so that's funny. Guess what? Look at this comment from Jan Nicholson.
But yeah, I got a great error here. The error that I was expecting to get, which is that I have to zoom out a little to make that visible. Type string is not assignable to type Boolean, which is exactly what we'd expect, because what's happening here is because there's no binding. This right-hand side is actually the string true. To make this a binding, I'd have to do that. And that worked, but I forgot to put the checked here. So we're going to say here, we're also going to bind checked on the input to checked. Right? So you'll notice that this I'm reading like a signal as well. So the return value on here is model signal, right? So I'll even leave a comment here, model signal of Boolean, which is the type we're working with. And so now when I pass this true in here, you can see it's checked because I actually added the binding on the input. So far looks like just a normal input, right, Mark? Right. But what happens if I say, well, I've got this is admin here, and I want to keep this in sync with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a two-way binding. I'm going to put the banana in a box syntax, and I'm going to change this from true to my is admin. And one thing to pay attention to here is that I'm not calling this. I'm not reading this Boolean value out of is admin. I'm passing it directly. And I'm also going to add just a little text here. Under the checkbox, I'll put a little HR there. And then I'm going to add a paragraph and say admin message. It's a good thing we added that now.
That's true.
Right? So now we see regular user. And I just come here and I check that. And I need to update the value here, right? So now when I have this checked, when I change this, I want to update this value. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and make a little event handler here. Let's use click for now, and we'll say toggle checked, and we'll introduce that method. Again, and here's where things start to get different from inputs. Is I can say this dot checked dot set, this dot checked and not. So I can set this. Normal inputs, normal signal inputs here, you cannot set. They are read only. But with model inputs, you can write to them. And not only that, when you do write to them, it propagates that change back up to this is admin signal because of this two-way binding, so that this gets updated. This computed expression now updates with that, and it says admin user, and we can just toggle that back and forth. And I wrote very little glue code to actually make this work. One of the things we'd like to do as well is also just make this two-way binding work on native controls like input, just like out of the box, so you don't have to like set up this event handler here, but we haven't done that yet.
So Jeremy, let's tell our friends. So here's a question that I bet someone has. Even I want to get some clarity on. Why can't I just? Oh no, I understand. You just said that because you said that the input, the way to send the value, is through an input. That's one way, but those are read only. So if the value is mutated or something inside that component, you can't like bind it backwards, right? Because it's read only.
Right. And so what you are doing with the model input is that you're defining a contract with whoever is using this component and saying, hey, if you give me a writable signal, which is what you get out of the signal here, and we can see like this has the type writable signal, then I am going to write into it, and that will update the value of the writable signal you have given me. And that will keep these two things in sync when you've used this two-way binding syntax.
So I have to bind my model. So I need two signals then, right? I need my signal that I want to keep in sync, and then I need my signal that is my model. So I need those two to make this work. So that's on line like 35, where you have your checked is a signal, so model signal, but then the is admin is just your kind of typical signal that holds a value.
Yeah, and so like this, you can think of this as like here, this, app component, this is your page, right? This is your, user profile page or whatever. And, you're putting a checkbox in there and you're just saying like, oh yeah, like I want to create a field locally, right? Like, and this can be, protected if you want. I'm just creating some field and I want to use this. In fact, I can even make this private. No,
because you use it in your template. Yep.
So yeah, this is protected, and I am like this, just some field that I have, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and I want the user to be able to toggle this value with the checkbox, and so I add this checkbox to my component, and it's like, well, I just want this value to stay in sync with whatever is checked there, and so you can use this two-way binding. And then over here on the checkbox, as the component author, you want to say like, oh yeah, this checked field should be two-way bindable. And because it's two-way bindable, I'm going to use a model input instead of a regular input.
But this seems like a convenience for us, right? Because I could accomplish this with an output and then bind to that output and then keep it in sync that way, right? Like I could write some glue code that way as well.
Yes, you absolutely could do that. This is purely a convenience over doing that. And like, frankly, like I think this is a lot neater, right? Like I had to write a lot less code to do this. And if I had even been able to use a two-way binding here as well, like I wouldn't have even needed this toggle checked function.
Right. That's what I was looking for. So, and the reason I'm asking these clarifying questions, I think we want to get people to understand how these things work and what our intentions are. Even though we already know the community is going to do whatever they're going to create their own conventions to do a lot of stuff. But I think it's interesting to, to kind of let people know what we were thinking and make it clear why you should do something like this, right? This is great. I like the model. And I also like, if you go back to line 35, I think it was real quick. I think it's worth noting that this, like, to reason about what's happening on line 35 is a lot clearer, I think, than what we had before. Because that two-way binding syntax, I'm not looking for like an output emitter someplace. You know what I mean? That's being like managed there. And I just like the fact that I'm like, okay, it's a binding plus an output, and it's like two-way binding, banana in the box syntax, go to my signal reference, not my signal value, my signal reference. And then, you know, we're able to get cooking. That's pretty great.
So I will say, mostly for backwards compatibility, but there is a check change here, and then we'll call, like, you know, update some text. Go ahead and introduce that. I'm just going to go ahead and say, you know, some text, signal of empty string, and in update some text, we're going to say this dot some text dot set. Here, actually, let's use update, because text plus equals another x.
I was going to actually make that same change for your toggle too, just for consistency's sake.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it either way.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I know both ways work, but, you know.
And then I'm just gonna put another paragraph there with my some text. Whoops. So there is, when you create a model input, it does also implicitly create this change event. So this is called checked, and so this is checked change, and you can listen to that event, and you can see every time I click it, it adds another X.
Oh, that's clever. I like that.
So that is there. The reason this is here is primarily for backwards compatibility, because this is the way that the two-way binding syntax has always worked. And so it kind of smooths over any incompatibilities that would be there by making it so that there is this event. So if previously you had implemented the approach to doing two-way binding where you introduce this change output, like if you switch to model, it just does that for you automatically. But in reality, if you do want to, you know, here, if I wanted to do something when is admin changed, what I really would want to do is use an effect. So I'm even just going to like delete that. And if I wanted to do something similar, right, I can, you know, in my constructor, I can say, I've got this effect, and some text dot update. I'll just say s equals x. So, whoops. This does need to read the is admin.
I was gonna say somebody has to.
So
reference.
What we're gonna do here is then we're also gonna say like this dot is admin. We're gonna read that, and if it's actually, let's not do it there. So s plus equal, and then this dot is admin. If that is going to say A, otherwise
make it an R. Yeah,
regular.
Regular.
Right.
Man, that feels bad. Even though I know you don't mean anything by are we displaying it?
So some text is still there, and this other update. Oh, you know what it might be is, so another param for effect, right?
I'll say on the effect, yeah.
So that's options, allow signal rights in that effect, because I'm like, there it is, yeah.
Nice job.
So the reason that this didn't work at first is because it's a little safety precaution to try to prevent you from causing these like circular state updates where by default you can't update other signals inside of your effect unless you specify allow signal writes true. This is a sign from the framework that's like, well, maybe you don't want to do that, right?
Right. Maybe you don't. Okay, Jeremy, let's take a commercial break to answer some questions.
All right, what questions we got?
We got like 12 questions, but we'll go through them. All right, first, I would like to use Event Emitter for a file upload, but I would like to receive other data with the file. I don't know if that's clear enough to answer. Do you know what this person's asking?
No. So generally, like file upload, right? Like there's nothing in Angular directly related to file upload. You would do that like you would any kind of normal JavaScript. And if you wanted to hook up an event to that, you would listen to whatever native event you'd be listening to and then just emit on your event emitter.
Yeah.
Mark, do you want to take my screen share off of
the
stream for a minute?
I do. Okay, so Ephraim says, should I use signals for member variables that won't be used in the template, but only inside the component class?
Yes.
Really? See, I would argue that maybe not, unless you care about the changes. Even if it doesn't go in the template, only if you care about the changes someplace.
So yeah, if you're using it in the template, yes, because the template is a reactive context.
Right.
If you are going to be changing the value over time and you want to do something with that value, whether you want to compute it from it or whether you want to like run an effect on when it changes, then yes, like if this is participating in the reactive system of the application, then yes, like you should model that as a signal. If it is like a constant value that's not going to change, then no, don't use a signal, right? Yeah. You can just use like a constant or a read-only field. Good
question. All right, let's see. Do you know any extensions that support new @for and @if in the .html file for WebStorm?
Does WebStorm not support it already? Like, I thought it did.
Yeah, Nicholas, can you tell us if WebStorm supports @for and @if in HTML?
Like when I type in here in WebStorm, it even auto completes to these for me.
Okay, so it seems to be working. Make sure you have the latest plugins and updates, and you should be good to go. All right, this is a good question. I don't know the answer. Mohit asks, do the signal inputs work with Storybook?
I don't know anything about Storybook, and it supports Story here. So I have no idea.
I don't know. I like Storybook as an idea. I never really gotten deep into it though. I think it's cool software.
Yeah, it's a super useful tool. But I'm actually just not sure on this one.
What is standalone and what is the use?
I might refer to the documentation on this one because it's a bit of a long explanation, but the gist of it is that originally Angular used a construct called ng-module to be able to declare for any given component what other components and directives and pipes you could use in that component. And it was a little bit complicated in that, like, okay, an ng-module would declare certain components and import certain components and export certain components. And it kind of created this ambient context in which the component was rendered and knows like, okay, well, I have access to these based on my ng-module and what that ng-module is importing. And it's kind of complicated. Standalone says, I'm not dealing with ng-modules. Like, I'm a component and I'm going to directly import any other components I'm using. So in that code sample I was writing, right, I marked this app component, my page, as standalone, and it directly imported the checkbox that it was using. So it's really just more kind of like having more local imports to the components and directives that you're using.
Good question. I'm going to jump. Let's see. Was it between set and update? I can take this one. When you're looking at a signal, if you do set, you're just going to be able to like set the value for it, right? If you do update, you can get the current value of the signal to be used in the value that you're going to like calculate or update to. So that's a good way to do that. All right. Let's see. I want to get at least 2 more questions and then we'll keep going. So you answered that one. Let's see.
There's one in here. Does model replace ng-model?
Oh yeah, that's here. Let's talk about that one. That's a great question.
Yes and no. if you were only using ng model for two-way binding, and you were not using it for its integration with Angular's form system, then yes, you could use a model input instead. And the kind of nice thing about model inputs too is that you're not restricted to just one value, right? So if you were to build a component like a date range picker that had a start date and an end date, and you wanted to be able to two-way bind both of those, right? With ng model, that would have actually been kind of clunky because you can only have one ng model on an element. Whereas with the model input, you could say like, oh yeah, start time and end time are both model inputs and could be two-way bindable. Like you could have made them, again, you could have made them two-way bindable fields before, but not with the singular ng model. You would have to make it like, oh, I have a data structure that contains both a start date and an end date.
Jeremy, here's a question to follow up on this. Can I use the model input? So you know how sometimes when we have a form of text field, we just want to be able to bind to the value of that text field, right? To be able to use it in my application code. Can I use a model input for that?
So did you say for the text of an element, like the inside of it?
No, like an input text field.
I think I know what you mean. I think the answer is yes.
Because right now I use an ng model to have the binding to the value of the text input.
So the input element, right? It's not an Angular component. It's not an Angular directive, right?
Right.
So you would still for now use ng model on that. Like I mentioned earlier, we have plans to make it so that two-way binding just works on the native input, select, text area, things like that. But we have not done that yet.
Got it. Nope, that's good. Just to make sure, because the reason I asked that is because I wonder. So this question by Tayamba, shout out to Tayamba in the building. What's up? This question is a great one because people will think, oh, we have a signal model. Let me put it everywhere because I really love the ergonomics of signals, right? And so that's why I want to make sure we clarify. Some cases this is not the right move for those cases.
And when you're authoring a common component, and again, this actually does get into a good question. When is it appropriate to use model and when is it not, right? You should not use model for all of your inputs, right? Going back to the checkbox example, I made the checked input a model input because it is intrinsically part of that checkbox that you are changing that value based on user interaction. The label, for example, is a regular input because nothing that is happening inside of that checkbox should be changing that label, right? That is purely information you're receiving from some ancestor or some parent component. And so that should be read-only. But, with controls like a checkbox, a date picker, a color picker, right? It is intrinsic to the functionality of the component that some user interaction is causing this value to change. And it totally makes sense for the component to change that value and then propagate that back up to whoever may be interested in it.
So what's really interesting here, and I think where we're going to have to do a good job on our side of socializing this information, I think people are going to reasonably and naturally link ng model to model, even though the bigger thing to consider is that a model is a writable input, which can be used on any type of component, like you said. You see what I'm saying? So people may lean toward form controls as the place where you use this, where it can be used anywhere for any of your components that you author, like you said, right? So I think us, especially DevRel folks, will have to do a good job of socializing that knowledge that hey, you use this where appropriate, right? When you need a writable input.
So the main thing I think that's different between this idea of model inputs and the previous, ng model, and even going back further to AngularJS and its ng model, is this one versus many relationship. Whereas with ng model, in both cases, you're saying this element, whether it's a component or a directive, it has one model value, right? And if you have something complicated, then you create a data structure that contains that entirety of the model. And with model inputs, we're saying oh, you may have any number of inputs into this components, and you can mark some of them as model inputs that support two-way binding. And additionally, you can, additionally, it creates this explicit contract around what you can pass to it, right? That accepts a writable signal.
Rock and roll. All right, let's take a pause from the questions. Let's get some gaming going.
Yeah, we could do that.
I want to see some Balatro.
I can also, like, if you want, I can show the new output API.
I do want, but I'd
have to update my project here to like the next version because.
All right, while you do that, I want to look over some.
But no, I'm just gonna play Balatro. Tune in next time if you want to see output.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do more. We can do more as you're booting up Balatro. I'm gonna see if I can answer some questions for us. Let's see. Okay, this is a good question. I think I understand what Cole fan is probably this Foran. Cole Foran is asking. When can we wait completely signal component in firm? So I think they're asking about when can we get signal components. The team's working on it, but you got to remember something about the Angular team. Like, we are going to release things when they're ready, and we cannot give you like a date.
Yep, that's always the answer to when is X happening. It's like when it's ready.
When it's ready. But listen, you're all better. So think about something that happened with the Angular team in general, as we've been going over these pretty significant improvements to the framework. You notice how a lot of your stuff is not broken when you update. You notice how, like, when you get our new features, you're able to get them and opt in, right? It's because we spend a lot of time on the back end planning for so much of that integration and update experience for all of our things, even with the signals, right? Like, we didn't break 1 million projects in the community because we forced like signals into the world. Like, we migrated them slowly. But here's the consequence of that careful, patient like procedure. It takes us time, right? And it just takes time to make sure we got it right. And we can't break you. We don't want to break you. And remember, things that we make have to work internally at Google as well. We don't want to break Google as well. So we take our time. So thank you for being a part of the community, and also thank you for your extreme amount of patience, because we're building stuff and we're making stuff. Let's see. Jeremy's still setting up. Let's see. I feel people are a little unfair about Zone.js. You know what, Gabriel? Whenever I think about Zone.js, I always tell people that I think in general, it's a really good idea. And I still go back to my first development experience with Angular and knowing, like, because I came from, I started with AngularJS, writing production code. Then I switched to React for a while. I remember in React, the set state, reasoning. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, so I want the screen to update. Let me set state. Then I came to Angular when I joined the team. Then it was like, wait, where's the set state? Where is the set? Where is the thing that kicks off the fact that I've made some changes, right? And I loved the magical experience that Zone.js did, because it just kind of automatically handled it. And I just think that at scale is what we found, Jeremy. I think Jeremy agrees. It just became problematic at scale for developers, and we just found that. Yeah. But the idea is still good. The idea is still solid. It's just that what you all ended up building exceeded the capabilities at scale.
Yeah, that is really kind of what this boils down to, is like the experience you can get with something like Zone.js, or even before that, right, with AngularJS, the way it did it, of, introducing separate APIs for like set timeout and things like that would run change detection. Right? It's a very good introductory experience, right? It's like, oh, cool, I just did it and it worked and it's magic. And then, we've seen applications at Google that have thousands of developers on them, and we've seen how this model kind of like breaks down both in the developer experience in terms of like, it gets really hard to debug things. It gets really hard to reason about change detections and how many are running and how often they're running. And it comes with a real performance penalty as well. We really spent, a very long time trying to find a way where it's like, how do we give people something that is as close as possible to that ease of development while still being able to scale up at large applications, large code bases with many developers. Anyway, I have Balatro ready if you're
All right, let's do it.
all right, get it in the stream. Oh man, I'm addicted to this game.
Tell the people what the game is about so we can know how to play.
Have you ever played poker?
Never.
You've never played poker?
No, I don't know how to play poker.
I don't.
So it's like poker, in that you're making poker hands. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let's go.
All right, hold on one second. I gotta give somebody a warning. All right, Honeydew, you get this warning. Be kind. You can give us constructive feedback and say it needs to be improved, but don't spam the chat, or else we'll have to put you on timeout. Then we'll have to remove you. Okay? You can do better than that.
Yeah. There's a code of conduct on Angular. All right. So the way this works is we're playing ante 1 right here, and we got our cards, and we're trying to make poker hands, right? So I don't know the button on PC. I've been playing this on my Steam Deck, but there's a button that shows like, there's a bunch of different poker hands, right? There's like pair, 2-pair, straight, flush, royal flush, things like that. And so I'm trying, I can see what's in my deck. But so let's see, I've got a pair of jacks here. I've got a pair of 8s, but like I could do better than that, right? Like,
what does better than that mean?
So, so if I were to play this pair of jacks, right? This is worth 10 points with a 2 times modifier.
Okay.
But if I had 2-pair, that's 20 points with a 2 times modifier. But if I could get kind of higher level hands, so let's keep these 8s, get rid of the king, discard that. Let's see. Not that much better. Still not much better.
Yeah, Abdullah, check this out. Check out the new documentation on angular.dev and let us know what you think. If there are areas where you think can be improved, open a GitHub issue because we have worked so hard to improve the documentation. So in general, friends, we know the documentation needed some updates and needed some changes. So we built a brand new website with a brand new experience for developers. That's angular.dev. So definitely head over there and let us know what you think. Let us know how we can improve it. And then even so, if you think you have a good idea on how to improve it, submit that change because we love community contributions. Thanks so much.
So yeah, I got 4 8s now. This is 4 of a kind, which is worth 60 points with a times 7 multiplier, right? Because it's much harder to get 4 of a kind than pairs. And so we play that, and you'll see each one of these scored 8 points in addition to the 4 that got there. Also, my game is super sped up because I set the settings to the max speed.
Okay, because I'm like, man, it's like zooming.
Yeah. So you get a little cash. I got 11 money now. And
virtual currency. We're not gambling in real life.
Yeah,
virtual currency.
This all goes away at the end of the run too. This is a roguelike.
Yeah.
And so you can buy packs of cards to add to your deck. Like you start off with the normal deck of playing cards, and then you can add to it over time. And you can get these jokers that like modify things about the cards that you're playing. Not a great example. None of these are really great examples. So we're just going to go to the next round. All right, what do we got? Ooh, we got a full house right here. So this is 2 kings and 3 8s. That's a full house. And all I'm trying to do is to beat this score right here on the left.
Okay, that's helping me understand.
So we got 3 queens. I think that'll actually be enough to push me over to the 450. Yeah. All right, what do we got now? So you can also get these tarot cards that kind of just like improve certain hands.
All right, so tell us, why are you why is this game so like addictive to you?
The run I'm having right now is not very indicative of like why it's indicative. So let's see. I'm gonna open this booster pack of Jokers. What do we got? Ooh, okay. There's some good ones in here. So this one kind of just gives you a random multiplier bonus whenever you play. This one gives you a 3 times your multiplier bonus if all the cards in your hand are spades or clubs. Which I'm not really close to being able to pull that off. So I'm going to go with this one. And so I've got a build going now.
Okay, let's see. Jeremy, we might have to pause for 1 second. Okay, no, keep going, and then we'll answer some questions.
Yeah, we can answer questions while I'm going. I don't have to like keep talking through it. But in case you're wondering, this stream is us. It's a combination of us, like sometimes coding, sometimes playing games.
Yeah, no, it's funny because people are commenting that it's like, "Did we come here to game?" Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that was the point of the stream. That's why we started doing this.
I was like, the stream started as a gaming stream, but then we decided to add some like coding inside, and we're always answering questions. But super appreciate the energy. Thank you for checking that out. Oh, and also we're gonna drop in. Let's see. Check out. Yeah. And so it'd be super clear about the whole documentation discussion because I see there's still some chat around that. We love feedback. That's one of the reasons why we even rebuilt the documentation was because of your feedback. However, we have to, be reasonable here, friends. So you know how we treat each other, and so let's be, let's adhere to the code of conduct and make sure that we're offering constructive and conducive conversations. Right? That's all we're saying. You could totally say it's not good. That does not hurt our feelings. Jeremy, can you please confirm it does not hurt our feelings if people don't like things?
Oh yeah, like we know more than anyone on the team when something kind of needs some attention. Just so we've only got so much time to spend on things at any given moment. Also, I need to step away for 30 seconds to let my dog out in the backyard.
Okay, do your thing. I want to answer some questions. Please explain some practical, beneficial stuff. So the first half of the stream we spent doing that, and we will continue to do that. But thanks for coming out, Abdullah. That's great. That's super great. Let's see. In your experience, are there cases where memory leaks in SSR that are not related to subscriptions and timed out? Anybody in the chat have this experience where you experience some memory leaks? Mikola, if you are actually experiencing memory leaks, if there's a small repro that you can submit on GitHub, that'll let us get back to you with some actual, we can investigate if you are seeing something like that. Definitely let us know. Please, 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 if you are finding that. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see more step by step. Oh, this is a good comment. We need more Angular Universal step by step to do more with SSR, SSG, and ISR examples from it. So, friends at home, SSR is server-side rendering, SSG static site generation, ISR incremental site rendering. I think. Let's see. So that's what we got to do now. Do you want more living alone? You want more content? We can do that. That's actually on our list. I promise you, that is on our list to do more.
Yeah. I wish I had the time to actually go rewrite and add more comprehensive documentation for literally everything.
So I have this secret plan that Jeremy doesn't know about that I'm going to do. My secret plan. So one of the things about Jeremy, if you really want him to do something, you find some time on his calendar. So I want to start secretly putting time on his calendar to work on projects that we never get done, just little by little, right? And then we're like, hey, Jeremy, I got this code problem, but the code problem is actually us rewriting parts of the documentation.
Yeah. So I don't know if this got a lot of attention, but in V17, I did rewrite the entire components guide for Angular.dev from scratch. And I'm very satisfied with the way that came out. And I'm working on a draft of a new template guide as well.
Oh, wait, I gave the wrong Discord link. That's my bad. Okay, friends, I'm going to get the right Discord. It's discord.gg/Angular. Let me put the right discord.gg/Angular. Okay, super dope. Okay, my teacher, let me see if I can find you because I do want to I think I might have starred your question. Let me see if I can find you. Did I? Let's see. We got some good comments. Oh, Stacy in the building. Oh, it's all good. I think people have their feelings, and technology is a thing that really inspires people, and people are really passionate about it. So it's all good. I think people are doing the best they can with what they know how to do. So we're working on it. But let me try to find this question because I don't want to. Let's see, Matija. You know what? If you can, you might have to ask you to repost it. Oh, nope. I got you. Found you. Matija. Okay, so in the current Angular documentation says effects are rarely needed in most application code, but I found it very often handy. How should I feel about using effects?
It is tricky, right? Like they exist for a reason. It's when you need to do something imperative in your code, right? And that kind of imperative style programming is just kind of a necessity sometimes when you need to like make a network request or focus a DOM element or log something, right? There's an uncountable number of imperative things you might need to do when some state changes, and that's totally reasonable. The thing that you should avoid using effects for is updating state. Right. If you find yourself saying like, oh, when this changes, I'm going to take that value and I'm going to write it into this other value over here. That's what you want to avoid, and instead use a computed.
Yeah, great question.
Right?
Great answer.
We think that for most UI development that, computed should like outnumber effect by a significant margin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. So one of the things that I think developers are learning in general about signals is that it changes the way you kind of have to like think about your development process. And there's lots of potential like traps you can fall into of just like making everything a signal just so you can like do one small thing and then you just kind of over engineer on some things. So you got to watch out for that type of stuff. But I love that question. Okay, so let's see. I think someone else was like, hey, they've been super patient. Oh, okay. Let's see. Benjamin asks, why does the Angular router stop working after trying to navigate to a lazy loaded route while offline?
I mean, probably because it's making a request for that, the lazy loaded route, and it fails, and the system doesn't handle that very well. It should handle that. I would say, like, if it doesn't handle that gracefully, then that's a bug.
Yeah. Let us know. So if you're finding out, so follow Jeremy's advice to kind of inspect that. If you find out that there is a problem, and you're doing all the right things, just set up a minimal reproduction for us. Submit a GitHub issue. That's what we're going to ask you. So I want to save you a step. Set up a minimal reproduction of your issue, submit it on GitHub, and then we're going to be able to investigate. Let's see. Fulvio Manfred. Hopefully I put it in discord.gg/Angular. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to get a service to work. It says no provider for HTTP client. My research indicated that a module using it. No. Clive, here's what you do. So coding questions are kind of hard. We usually prefer abstract questions, but what you have to do to fix this is that you have to, in your app config for your newly generated, this is for like new apps 17 and above. 15 and above, I think, when we had standalone, right? So it's probably standalone. So what you have to do is in your app config, set up a provider, and then add in your HTTP client that way. We definitely have examples of this on the tutorial site. So check out angular.dev or angular.io for a tutorial to do that. Good question. What's a place to host the Angular SSR app? You can do Firebase works. Firebase hosting works there to do that. And I think most places work, but I've had the most experience with using like Angular Fire and then deploying on there. Good questions. Would love the questions. Okay, let's see. Every day I'm passionate about Angular. Every day I'm more passionate about Angular. Doesn't make me a fanboy. Let me tell you something. One of the commitments that I had for myself this year was that I was going to write significantly more Angular code and just, get even deeper and deeper into the framework. And I'll be completely transparent. The more I learn about the API surface that we have, it amazes me how much stuff is there. It's almost like we could, yeah. we could give conference talks about these super in-depth features that we've had, that just we've had for a long time. We've had for a long time that are doing cool things. So glad that you like it though. Hey, I want to migrate an Angular Dart app to Angular. I want to use Fetch as a promise-based API. It's closer to Angular Dart compared to HTTP client at a high level. Is this approach okay? You can use Fetch for your HTTP requests, but let me tell you why you would consider HTTP client. HTTP client has a really robust API for things like interceptors and other manipulations that you can do that we've built out for you, right? If you get a streaming response, for example, you can do a lot of cool things with HTTP client and observables, etc. If you don't need those features, it is okay to use Fetch.
Yeah, like I'll even say, right, like even Angular's HTTP client is not like a super sophisticated data client, right? Like there's kind of this tier of like, okay, like lowest level, you have Fetch for like super basic things. Then you have Angular's HTTP client, which can support interceptors, and it has a good testing story. That's kind of like the most important parts about Angular's HTTP client. And then there's a whole world of more sophisticated data clients built on top of that. Things like Apollo or TRPC or like the TanStack stuff. So, Angular's is kind of like a middle ground of like, it's a little bit more feature rich than just kind of like the lowest level Fetch, but it's not going as far as a much more opinionated system.
Yeah, great answer. Simon asks, could it be possible to set default component behavior in Angular.json? For example, standalone, change detection, signal component when they become available. By that, I mean not even have to have them in the decorator. I am so interested in this answer because I've been having conversations with the team about what we can do here. Jeremy, I'll let you jump in on this one.
So, I mean, again, the answer is like yes and no. So you can set the default in that's what it generates for you. And for whether or not it's reading the default, like not really, because component like libraries exist. Yeah. And any given component may be authored in such a way that it's not meant to work with something like, being a signals component or being standalone. And so like setting that default there wouldn't really apply in those situations. And yeah, like, yes, you could make a system that's like, I'm going to create a configuration file for this block of components. But that kind of gets complicated in the build side of things. And this is, inside baseball stuff, but it also like makes it too like complicated for the way we build Angular inside of Google, because Google's internal build system is not really like compatible with doing something like this. And so it's just technically not really a viable thing for us to really do. Like we may ultimately decide to do something like this and just like, oh, it's just in the Angular CLI and something like that. But for now, we think that like the complexity trade-off or like how much work it would be to actually do that versus just having standalone true in your component is the course of action that makes the most sense for us right now.
Yeah. Good questions. Okay, genuine question. No worries, Saurabh. You can ask anything, but I appreciate you asking. But you don't have to prefix it. You can just ask us like we're cooler than the other side of the pillow, believe it or not. Are there any plans to remove the rendering of app-product tag when components are rendered? So, Jeremy, this sounds like a selector question, right? And we've been having this conversation.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've talked about, I think, on this stream before, is that we know that there are some friction points with using selectors as the API by which you include a directive or a component in your template. Because like one, you inevitably have what you're referring to as a host element, right? Every component has a host element, which is a real element in the DOM that must be rendered into your page. And people don't always want that. And so that's part of it. There's this other part of it of saying like, when you have selectors, you also need to have a secondary import somewhere. So that's why when you saw I was writing the standalone component import, you have imports and you say like, these are the components and directives I'm using. And that's necessary because you're not just directly importing the TypeScript symbol and using that symbol. And so we know about these friction points, and we hope to do something about it in the future. We don't have anything concrete to share about that yet, but it's very high on our minds.
Yeah. And for people just tuning in, just for context, Jeremy is playing a video game. This is not real gambling. There's no, for real, they got to be super clear. This is just a video game. It's a roguelike that uses poker as the mechanic, right? It's not real gambling. I got to make that super clear.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be like, man, I saw the Angler team betting, $26 on the stream. What are they doing? Oh, because we play video games. I mean, when I see this, I actually like to deconstruct things when I look at them and try to see, like, can we make something like this for fun?
Yeah. So I could have proposed like trying to code something like this, but we wouldn't have gotten anywhere interesting in the time that we had.
You know why? Because we didn't follow through on what we should have, Jeremy. Because remember when we first were doing games, we said we were going to make our like library or like game library of like common things like shuffling, dealing, sorting. And we didn't do that. And we should have, because that's where we lose time. Or card UI, right? Like a card. We totally should just make a component that is a playing card. And then we will save so much time on setup. Maybe I'm going to do that. I told you I'm going to write more code this year. So even more. Yeah, let's do this question. Let's see. What's up with Material 3, right? I've read the M3 experimental guide. Thank you for reading that. It seems like it's a long way to go for every app to fully migrate to M3. Any plans for a code mod on some parts? I think by code mod, we're talking about a migration strategy, right?
So it's not actually intended to migrate existing applications to M3. That is far outside of the scope of what we could accomplish with the UI components, because it's not just the UI components yourselves, it's everything in your app around them. And we think it would be, just not something that we could realistically do to try to move like every application that's using the like material design style to the latest style centrally. So really, when we're talking about M3 support, we're talking about like, hey, for people who want to use this style either for new apps or they want to put in the work to go to like move their app to that updated style, they can do that, right? There's the API for it, but we don't really plan on like updating the visuals directly, right? Like you should not update your Angular version and then suddenly all your UI components look like dramatically different. That's not something we would do.
Jeremy, we should do a stream with somebody from the components team and just have them like walk through an example of how to do that, right? Just the manual process of like updating your app and just some cool stuff. Because I think that could be super cool. That's a good question. I like that we have this. Hey, Vladislav, I don't understand what you mean. What is CDR? You said why ng new doesn't have flag for CDR? What is CDR?
Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
Yeah, let us know what it is so we can answer. Oh, Clive, what was I saying about answering coding questions? Okay, so here's the hard part. Sometimes people will have questions that require a lot of context of their application, which we don't have. So it can be a little hard to answer like a coding problem like in this format. That's what I meant by that.
Things aren't looking great, Mark.
Wait, we did say hello to Brazil. We always say hello to Brazil. All the time. All the time. But hello to you again. Don't you worry. We care. Let's see. This is an interesting question. Check out ai.google.dev for the latest information about, Gemini and all that kind of good stuff. That's where you can find more information. Oh, good question from Harold. He says, what is the benefit of using signals over variables in a service that is injected in my component?
Oh, it's the same thing that we were talking about earlier, right? If you want those values to participate in the reactivity model, right? If you want to have like any updates to those values seamlessly flow into your templates or into computeds or effects, then all of that will just work. It doesn't have to be restricted to components.
Yeah. But so if I made a service, should the values of my service be, a signal? Like, am I going to get any benefit because I'm never going to really in my template do like this dot service dot get users in my template itself, right? So
You could. What's stopping you?
I don't know. It just feels bad to me. I don't know why it just feels like a bad move to put my servers directly in my template, but maybe my thought process needs to be updated. Oh, okay. This is a good one. I want to hear what you say about this, Jeremy. I have an idea, but I want to hear your idea first. Can the destination component in the router be made dynamic depending on a router parameter? So can you like do a dynamic route pretty much?
I don't think so.
So here's what I think you can do though. So tell me if this is the right idea or if this is an anti-pattern. I think you could have a route that itself could dynamically load a component with like a template ref, right? Like in some type of like container or something, right? Like you could dynamically load a component in a route that's what it does.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. Like, I think you would just want parameter. Yeah, you just want the route to be dynamically on a route parameter. That's just it's not just a different route. That's what routing is, isn't
but
it?
I think we doesn't know what the route is going to be. So it's kind of like dynamically, like taking a parameter that can be, non-deterministic and be like, okay, it's like Jeremy's page. And then instead of like dynamically building some type of components or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could. There are different ways you could do that. Yeah, it's not something I've really thought about.
Yeah. Oh, Gabriel said to be really hacky. I believe you that it would be. That's why I'm trying to think of a way to do it that doesn't feel hacky. I wish there was a good, Jeremy, would be really fun too if we got like questions of like weird things to, not weird, that's the wrong word, different things or challenging things to do with Angular. And we did a stream where we like went through a few of them, just try to do it just to see what we can get out of it. I think that could be pretty fun.
Yeah, could do that.
But then we got to organize the questions, and I don't know how to organize the questions. That's a lot of extra work. Greetings from Slovakia. Hello. Greetings. Let's say. Oh, and speaking of greetings, friends, if you would like a shout out, most of the times I do that within the first 5 minutes of the stream. So if you're able to make it to the beginning of the stream, I go through and I shout out lots and lots of people. Living Alone has a good question. Is there any Angular bloat with module and standalone architecture? Will there be future plans to push Angular to be standalone architecture only?
So we have no plans to eliminate ng modules, right? And so there is kind of a small overhead to ng modules. Standalone is a little bit more simple. So, but it's usually like so small that it's not really worth it as like an independent optimization to make. Right? It's like we're talking about like maybe a few bytes per ng module. Because that class, the ng module class, does actually get shipped down to the client. So like you are paying the bytes for that. We do intend for the default like learning experience and like going forward, right? Like any new application should be written as standalone, right? Like ng module is now like it is supported for existing code, but we don't recommend new code use ng modules. But yeah, we have no plans to like deprecate ng modules or force people to migrate away from it. Like it's the intent for now is like just it is another supported thing that will continue working.
Any updates about signal support in Angular dev tool so it can be used to track state? I thought we were. I don't know why I thought we had this. Jeremy, is there any ideas about this?
I mean it's a would like to do. I think some people have built like prototypes, but we don't have like that, it's not one of the projects we're actively working on right now.
Okay, sounds good. Simon, I'm gonna tell you, we get this question a lot. Still on the roadmap, it's still a thing. So I'd like to know if there is any update about micro front ends for Angular. It's still in your roadmap and it seems some progress being made. Progress is being made, but I don't have anything to report just right now.
Yeah. So the project that was in the backlog was in the roadmap was for like collecting information and like writing a blog post about like micro front end strategies, which I think Minko did do. Um, we aren't actively working on any micro front end stuff right now. Our focus is pretty solidly on signals and SSR and like improvements around like SSR and hydration and that kind of stuff. NGConf is coming up in a couple of weeks, and so if you really want the hottest, like latest and greatest of what we're doing, make sure you catch that NGConf keynote.
Yeah, it should be streamed. It should be available to developers too for our keynote. I'm pretty sure it is, but don't quote me on that. Actually, I shouldn't even have said it on stream. You shouldn't quote me because somebody's gonna quote me no matter what. That's my bad. Let's see. I saw a couple of questions that I definitely want to chat on. Okay, Cedar asked the difference between NG on a knit and the constructor. This is a good question. A lot of people don't know what this is. I want you to think about like the architecture of a component or just a class in general. Whenever you create an instance of a class, that constructor is going to be run regardless, right? So in your constructor, you should do, I think, this is a little hot take for some people, they don't follow my instructions, but I think you should keep your constructor pretty light. That way when you're creating instances of the class, things should happen quickly. So nothing like no long operations. Your NG on the net, that's a good place for you to start doing your other stuff, right? Like it's safe to start doing like API calls and other things that could take a little bit longer. But so one's a life cycle method, one is just one is a part of just the class, right?
Yeah.
So
I will say the most important distinction between them is that ng on init happens after all of your components or directives inputs have their initial values set. Mm-hmm. So for any inputs, including model inputs, that is the first point at which you have access to those values. And so anything you would do that needs those values should happen in ng on init. Other than that, it doesn't really matter.
See, that's what a hot take is, because I think from an architectural point of view, like in my mind, best practices, in Mark's best practices, I don't like to put API calls in my constructor.
Why not?
Because I think the constructor should be something that runs really fast.
If your component needs that data to render correctly, it should be in the constructor, because all you're doing, if you put it in ng on a init, all you're doing is increasing the latency until that data shows up in the UI.
Your question was not skipped. Okay. I mean, I hear you. It's something we could talk more about, because I've always been against putting API calls in my constructor because I think that the instantiation should be quick. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's something I want to talk to you more about.
Yeah.
Let's see. Danny Lowe, your question wasn't skipped. You know how many questions we get? How many crumb cakes? How many bars of soap? How does local view? Wait, let me start over. I started quoting the movie, and I got a little carried away. How does local view change detection on signal component? It's going to happen if you use EG signal from the service that's shared among different components. Will all the components be change detected when this share signal changes?
Yes, that's it.
See, not skipped, answered. Doug from our tooling lead says, Minko was going to publish a blog post for micro front ends, but he's short on time lately. Isn't that the truth? He also says, we're looking into signals for dev tools, but it's still very early. Still very early. Doug, thanks for answering those questions. Let's see. Oh, sure. Jerry asked the question, is there a schedule or a calendar for live streams like this? Normally, we do it the first Friday of the month. That's the schedule. Unless something happens.
Yeah, sometimes we end up pushing it back to the second Friday if we have a conflict, like NGConf.
But we do pre-schedule usually. So here's what you can do, Jerry, if you want to make sure that you're around. You're on X, so be sure to go ahead and connect with us on X. Go ahead and follow us on X. And then, because we stream there, of course, and we also stream on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube, because then you get the notification when the stream comes on. Turn on notifications. That way you can know ahead of time. But it's the first Friday of the month. Oh, good question. These are see. I like good questions. What about injecting services in the constructor? Should I declare them with inject or use the constructor injection?
There is no right answer to this. Mm-hmm. So both are supported right now. I will give you Jeremy's personal preference. This is not the formal position of the Angular team. This is not, the Angular style guide. This is my own personal preference. I like the inject function. I like the inject function because I find it easier to read and more concise. The typings are better, and it works better with inheritance. So if you are, inheriting something or something is inheriting you, you don't have to deal with passing dependencies up and down to super. So I like it a lot. The thing that you can't do with the inject function, if you just use it in property initializers, is that you can't just pass in those dependencies in a test, right? You have to use Angular's injection system to provide the values so that they get injected in. And I don't mind that, right? Like in real life, your components, directives, whatever else, they are being created, or services is really the thing that matters here. Like they are being created in the context of Angular's DI system. And so having that happen in your test as well, in my mind, makes that more representative of what's happening in real life. But we know that there's a lot of people out there who like being able to instantiate services with the new operator and manually pass in those dependencies. And you can't do that with the inject function today. So it's really like that trade-off that you're making for yourself. We will probably have a recommendation at some point, but we don't right now.
Yeah. Although I did write a blog about this. I got buried they buried my blog. One day it'll be resurrected. No, it's all good because we have to give more conversations. All right, let's see. I don't understand on push change detection strategy. Do we need it? Because I think that signals and NGRX is sufficient to do the jobs. Please help me understand.
Well, first of all, I want to highlight here that I've got a royal flush, which is the best hand you can get here. So,
let's see it. Are you about to win?
Oh no, I'm probably about to lose. Actually,
you getting rocked. That did not look good. What happened?
I was as good as I can get. But anyway, put that question back up. So, on push, what does it mean, right? So, Angular components have two change detection modes. The one is called on push, and the other is unfortunately named default, which does not tell you anything about what it does. The internally in like the framework code, they're called check always and check once, which also is not like very good naming. So the names don't really do much to tell you what the difference is. But so the default mode will, anytime something is changed, it will mark the component as dirty, right? So like anytime there's a set timeout, anytime there's an event, anytime there's a network request that resolves, it will mark that component as dirty and change it. On push will only mark a component as dirty in two situations. One is that there's an event handled, and two is if an input to that component, input on that component changes as a result of a template binding changes. This does not apply if you like use a query and you get a reference to an input property and you set it. That won't cause it. It's only if in a template binding that input changes. And then you can manually mark it as dirty by like injecting change detector ref and saying like mark for check. And so on push just limits the number of situations in which a component would be marked as dirty and need to do change detection. And then like there's a bunch of like more nuanced stuff around like the way on push works and kind of some of its shortcomings. And I would recommend Alex and I talk about this in an ngconf talk from a couple of years ago. It's called Angular, a Design Review 10 Years Later. I would recommend going and checking out that talk because we get into it a little bit here about why like on push is insufficient. And I think I'll leave it at that because otherwise we're just like going down a deep rabbit hole.
It would be awesome to have a public calendar where I can subscribe for live streams. Oh, that's interesting. Making a calendar and then people can see our live streams. That's interesting. I don't know how to, the right way to do it, but it's just so you can see it. I get it. I actually appreciate that energy, Morgan. Something we'll consider. We'll consider a solution around how to get people to know when we're going to be out here hanging out. Two things. DJ, Random official. You asked about captions and subtitles. We have been trying to find a good solution that works with our setup. We may have to switch platforms that'll let us do this. It's something we have to figure out. We might have to switch platforms, to be honest with you, to get to a good captioning solution.
Yeah, we're doing this from StreamYard. And
Yeah, and it's
I
just
mean,
limited with what you can do. But
there's auto-generated captions available on YouTube on the uploads once they're up, but for
right,
like live
that's for
captionings,
live. Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that we just got to figure it out so we can serve more people. To be honest with you, so to get back to this question though, what would be the best way to name folders or differentiate a solo component? Okay, that's going to be used within a page from a page component, so that they are not in the same directory. Jeremy, go ahead and answer this. I know you got feelings about this. Go ahead and answer.
Name folders. So I mean, it depends on your project. It's hard to give like a universal
Well, what
answer,
would you do then? Just say what would you do? How would you name your pages versus your components?
right? If I had a set of like, oh, here's like common UI widgets, I would probably have a folder that's just something like, you know, common components or shared widgets or something like that, whatever name you like. And the rest of that would like be a top level folder, and then like other things in the app would also just be like top level folders, right? Like I've worked on like advertising software before, and it would be like shared components, campaigns, placements, you know, ads, like different folders for like different types of UI. There's there's no right answer, no right or wrong answer here. It's just like whatever makes most sense for your project and like where the developers on your project are going to be most active.
All right, Jeremy, I want to do something random right now. All right, I want to do something. I want us to start coding our game library. How would you feel about that?
Well, like right this minute, probably not.
All right, fair. I understand, but that's how I'm thinking. Like, you know, I was just thinking. I started writing some notes about like the UI parts that we would need. When you say UI widgets, right? I was like, oh yeah, like our card, and then the card could have a tuple, which is the face. You know, that way we can provide the template. So in my mind, you have your card, and then you can provide the component that represents the graphics for the card, but you can give the card all these like card interface, all these like functionality, like flip, turn. You know what I mean? Like all these things.
You really are stuck on this idea of like
Yes.
building some
Yes.
sort of game engine.
I am. I can't. But see, you know
I-
what I did? I went too far. When I tried to build the game engine, I went too far because I tried to build the board first instead of starting simple with just like a card.
Yeah.
But this stream is almost over because we've been streaming for almost an hour and a half, and you know, we're coming to the end of this.
See, when you start with like a project like that, Mark, what you're describing, right? Like you have to have like actual like games in mind at the end, right? If you're going to say like, all right, I'm going to take these however many games, like say 5, right? Like I want to take solitaire, spades, hearts, poker, and something else, and like I need a system to make all of these work, and probably start off with just like one by one, like going through like these are the features that need to happen, right? Like there's a hand, there's a playing field, there's a this, there's a that. If you try to just like make something in isolation without considering like the ultimate use cases, you will always end up with something that is like good at doing nothing.
Dang. Sorry about that, friends. Please tell us which famous. I agree with your feedback, by the way, but I also want to answer this question. I agree with your feedback. So one of the things that stopped me before from planning more for our coding streams, I was like, I want to keep it light. You know what I mean? But I really want to do this project because I'm really interested in like building something and leveraging all of our like new features. So what are some famous websites that use Angular? There are lots. Build.com is a famous website that uses Angular. What else, Jeremy, that we can say?
I mean, things I've seen on like when it comes to like Google applications, where we can't kind of just like universally say what is and isn't using Angular, but I think on like we've mentioned kind of in official capacities before that like Google Cloud Developer Console, that's an Angular app. Firebase Console is an Angular app. And, you know, many others inside of Google that I'm not sure we're allowed to talk about, but
Yeah.
we've talked about Bard, or
Yeah.
it's been rebranded to Gemini now. So
It's a great
Google's
name,
new
actually.
Gemini is an Angular app.
Okay.
What else?
Messages.
Yeah, so other things like in the world that I've seen, right? Like I think Delta.com, I think T-Mobile uses Angular for some stuff. I've like this is just from me like looking at dev tools and seeing it.
So people are saying in a comment, UPS is made with
Battle.net?
Angular. Royal Bank,
I think I've seen on like Blizzard's Battle.net website. I think
Battle.net is
you know.
made with Angular. Yep. Lots of people use Angular. Angular is out there. Just like here's the other thing that I think is really interesting, just about this conversation. I think we can start to wrap up with this. You know, if you look at developer conversation and sentiment, you know, it's really hard to know because people in general, developers just love the latest and hottest thing. So something new comes out, everybody gravitates towards it. But you got to think about like in the engineering world, you know, out there, there's technologies that you probably don't even know are using things that you haven't even been thinking about. Like jQuery still powers a massive amount of the internet. What's the other one? WordPress still powers a lot of the internet.
Yeah,
Still lots of Rails apps.
WordPress is like most of the internet. It's not like it's like, oh, it's still around. It's like, no, it is most of the internet.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So it's just like, you know, people are like, oh, what's using this? A lot of websites use Angular, like a lot. But a lot of websites use other tools too. Here's a good question that I think we can close on because we have the best answer for. Let me get back to that question. And then we'll start wrapping it up. Oh, man, did they delete their question? Oh, so 2 more questions. Does Angular have some solutions for HTML canvas? Nothing first party.
We just don't do anything with it, right? You would use it just like you would Canvas in any other system.
Yeah, nothing like that.
Right. So this I will like tangent here is like a lot of people get caught up on this idea of the like, oh, there's an Angular way to do something, or there like needs to be an Angular support for something. And like for most of the web, you just use the normal web API and it's fine, right? There doesn't need to be like an Angular specific Canvas thing or an Angular specific mutation observer, intersection observer, all these things. Like just use the native web API and it's fine. It works. You know, it's all just JavaScript at the end of the day.
So I want to tell you where I think this comes from, though. I think 2 things. I think that we set some really comfortable conventions that you get to use that people want to continue, right? So like the way we have components and, you know, the inputs and outputs, all these things. I think people just are looking to use more of that, which is what they want to know why we're doing stuff. And I think for me, where I'm always like, oh, can I use this with Angular? If I ever ask that question, it's usually because, you know, I'm worried about keeping it in line with Zone, to be honest with you, like just making sure it works within the Zone.
Yeah. Another reason to want to move away from zones.
Yeah, well, you know, we're moving. Nobody asked me about my heavy metal voice progress this week. That's surprising to me. That's surprising. Nobody asked me. Let's see. This is our last question of the day. You all have been so fantastic. Let's see. Oh, so many questions, so many comments.
Oh, that's
I know
the most overloaded question that you could bring up. We're not going to answer that.
I am going to answer it. You know what, Abdullah? I'm going to tell you this. Everything is great.
Yeah. Okay. If that's our answer, right?
Like, it is. That's always our answer.
That's always our answer, right? Is like all tools are good. They all have their own trade-offs. Choose the thing that works best for the big thing that you're building, and only you can decide that.
Yep. Just do that. And then you're going to be great. New features in 2024.
Yes.
Aaron, yes, so many. Check our blog.
This is a yes/no question. New features in 2024? Yes.
Yes. And look, you want to know what we've already dropped so far? You go to blog.angular.io. We're going to put it in chat. Head over to there are a bunch of new feature blogs up. We are cooking. Like we're literally in the kitchen and we're just cooking. Let's see. There's a 3 implementation made for Angular made by Chen Trao. Sorry, because let's see, named Angular 3. If you're interested in working with it for 3D, Abel, thank you for putting that in there. That's awesome. Very, very awesome. Hi, team from Alcatraz 01. What's going on? Tuned in at the end again. Haven't touched Angular code in a few months, but it was nice touching the new features. Hey, head over. You know what you can do, friends? If you ever want to try something new, this is real. Can I do this real quick, Jeremy, before we wrap up and just say goodbye? Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me do this one thing. This is something that people don't even know that you can do. And I'm about to blow some minds out of the water. You're like, oh my gosh, Mark, this is amazing. And I'm gonna hook you up. I gotta make sure I don't share anything secret though. So let me just take a second to share my screen and to make sure I only share the right thing. Okay, that looks okay. All right. So you might not know about this. We got this little website called angular.dev. On this website, oh, wait, I got to add it to the screen. On this website, you can type in Angular code in the browser and check Angular features. And we got some templates here. Like if you want to try control flow, like new stuff, we have like new stuff here. So you want to try signals in the browser? Check out signals, right? So you can just try this stuff and like not install anything. Not install anything, which is so good. So good, so good, so good. Right? Like so do this. Okay, Jeremy. Let's say our goodbyes. Tell everybody what are you excited about? What should they go check out? And what are you playing right now?
Excited about ngconf. Got still, some work to do before keynote, but working on it. And other events.
Yeah.
And I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which honestly, like too much open world filler. It's really bumming me out. Like,
oh no.
The game is, gameplay is great. Too much open world filler, but Balatro, oh man, I cannot put Balatro down.
We noticed you played for like 45 minutes on the stream, so you're into
minutes.
it. All right, what am I into? What am I playing? What should they go check out if they haven't checked it out yet?
Angular.dev. I think you got that right. It's in beta now, but new site's gonna be coming in too soon.
Yeah, we're working on it. Here's what I'm playing. I'm playing nothing. No kidding. I got the Capcom arcade version 2 for me and my child. We are playing some of the older like arcade Capcom games, so it's like an arcade emulator on the Switch. We pay for it. It's not like no, I downloaded the emulator through the Switch Nintendo store. Pay for it. That's what we've been playing. He's having a good time going through all these games from when I was a kid, and he just gets a kick out of the fact that 30 plus years ago, 40 years ago, these games were around. It's amazing. One thing I'm going to check out this week is Dune 2. I'm going to go see that in the theater in IMAX. Can't wait to see that. And then if you haven't checked, what should you check out? I say you should check out Angular.dev because there's some really cool stuff there. Like there's just a lot of stuff going on there. You want to check it out. You want to see what's happening. All right. All right, friends. Here's what I need you to do. Get your pens out. Get your pen and paper or your little notepad. I'm gonna give you a couple of seconds. I want you to go be excellent to each other. And no matter what you use to build your applications, all we care about is that you go build great apps. See you the next time.